Horror is a wide shelf. Some books feel like a slow temperature drop. Some are built around a creature you can picture. Some are psychological, where the unease comes from how people explain what they see. This guide is a simple map for horror fans who want a confident next pick without stumbling into the wrong kind of intensity. I will use 9 reliable gateway titles to show the range. If you want classic atmosphere, Dracula and Frankenstein are clean entry points. If you want modern tension with a clear premise, Bird Box and Mexican Gothic are strong starters. If you want the big Stephen King experiences, The Shining, Pet Sematary, and It are different kinds of long-form immersion. If you want haunted house craft at its best, The Haunting of Hill House is a masterclass. If you want a possession story that shaped popular culture, The Exorcist is the obvious reference point. In each section, I will tell you what the book feels like on the page, what kind of scares it prioritizes, and who it is best for. I will also add a gentle content note in neutral language when it helps you decide. The goal is not to prove how tough you are. The goal is to match your taste, protect your reading mood, and help you finish the book you start. The Shining, Stephen King. A cold weather haunted setting with family tension and a steady claustrophobic build that stays readable even for new horror readers. This is a good first Stephen King because the writing is clear and scene-based. The scares come from isolation, atmosphere, and the feeling that a place has its own mood. You get long stretches of suspense without needing gore to keep you turning pages. If you like horror that feels cinematic, this delivers. King is also careful about character psychology, so the unease is not only supernatural, it is about stress, routines, and how small decisions compound under pressure. Content note in neutral terms. This book includes addiction themes and domestic conflict. If you want the supernatural element without the family stress being front and center, you might prefer The Haunting of Hill House. If you want a faster modern premise, try Bird Box. If you finish this and want more King with a bigger canvas, it is the natural escalation. Many readers also appreciate that the chapters are short and the momentum is steady, which makes it easy to read in small sessions. Dracula, Bram Stoker. A classic Gothic chase with letters and journal entries that create a travelogue feel, full of night air, superstition, and slow burn menace. Dracula is ideal if you want atmosphere and folklore more than shock. The format is epistolary, so you read the story through documents. That structure keeps scenes brisk and gives you natural stopping points. Modern readers sometimes worry that classics feel distant. This one is surprisingly readable because it is built from vivid moments and clear stakes. You also get the origin of many vampire rules that later stories borrow. Content note in neutral terms. There is blood imagery and predation themes. If you want a more philosophical classic with a shorter length, Frankenstein is an excellent companion. If you want a modern Gothic mood with social tension, Mexican Gothic is a good bridge from classic to contemporary. A practical tip is to treat each document as a chapter. Read a few at a time and the momentum builds. Many editions are in the public domain, so you can sample different formats and pick the typography you like. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. A moody early science fantasy classic told as a confession and a warning, focused on loneliness, responsibility, and the dread of unintended consequences. This is horror in the reflective sense. The fear is not about jump scares, it is about creation, abandonment, and the way ideals turn brittle when reality pushes back. If you are new to older prose, Frankenstein is manageable. It is shorter than many classics and the emotional through-line is clear. You can read it as Gothic mood, as an ethical thought experiment, or as a story about isolation. Content note in neutral terms. There are themes of grief and harm. If you want a classic that leans more into the supernatural atmosphere, Dracula may suit you better. If you want the modern equivalent of dread with a tight haunted space, The Haunting of Hill House is an excellent next step. Many people think they already know this story because of film and pop culture. The novel is quieter and more philosophical. Going in with fresh eyes often makes it feel newly unsettling, even if you know the iconography. The Haunting of Hill House, Shirley Jackson. A precise haunted house novel with elegant sentences and a tight cast, where the fear comes from suggestion and the feeling that a room is listening. If you want horror that is unsettling rather than graphic, this is a perfect pick. Jackson is economical. Every scene has a purpose and the tension climbs by implication. This book is also friendly to busy readers. It is short, the chapters are compact, and the reading experience is cohesive. It is easy to finish quickly, which matters for beginners who are testing the genre. Content note in neutral terms. There are themes of anxiety and social pressure. If you enjoy this kind of psychological unease, you can follow it with The Shining for a longer isolation story. If you want the same Gothic vibe in a more modern setting, Mexican Gothic is a natural progression. Screen adaptations often emphasize spectacle. The novel is about tone and perception. Reading it at night is optional. Reading it in daylight can be even stranger, because the unease feels out of place in a normal room. Bird Box, Josh Malerman. A modern survival horror thriller with a simple constraint and relentless forward motion, designed for fast reading and high tension without complicated lore. This is a strong choice if you want momentum. The chapters are short and the prose is direct. The fear comes from uncertainty and from how characters manage risk with limited information. Many readers use Bird Box as a gateway because it reads like a page-turning film. You get suspense through decisions and environments rather than through elaborate mythology. Content note: in neutral terms, there are scenes of panic and violence. If you want a calmer Gothic atmosphere after this, shift to Dracula or Mexican Gothic. If you want a heavier modern classic with a longer build, The Shining is a good next step. If you prefer audio, this one works well because the sentences are clean and the scene beats are easy to track. If you have seen the film adaptation, the book still feels different in pacing and in how it controls what you can imagine. Mexican Gothic. Silvia Moreno Garcia. A stylish Gothic mystery in a decaying mansion with social tension and creeping bodily unease, blending old-school atmosphere with modern pacing and clarity. Choose this if you like horror that overlaps with mystery. You get a strong sense of place and a steady drip of odd details that add up. The prose is accessible, so you can enjoy the mood without fighting the sentences. The book is also a good bridge for readers who usually read historical fiction or literary suspense. The scares are layered. Some are about the house and some are about power dynamics. Content note: in neutral terms, there is body horror and manipulation. If you want the pure haunted house craft without the social mystery angle, go to The Haunting of Hill House. If you want an older Gothic origin point, Dracula is a clean classic counterpart. The setting is 1950s Mexico, which gives the book a fresh texture compared to many English manor house Gothics. The word Gothic here means atmosphere, secrets, and architecture that feels alive. It is not about medieval castles only. Pet Sematary. Stephen King. A grief-centered horror novel with small-town texture and a grim, inevitable tone, where the dread builds from ordinary life into something you wish you could unsee. This is often recommended as one of King's darkest books, and that is about mood more than gore. The writing is direct and the pacing is steady. The effect comes from watching a boundary get crossed that cannot be uncrossed. Choose this when you want emotional weight and a story that lingers after you close the cover. It is not the best first King for every reader. It is better as a second or third step after something like The Shining. Content note: in neutral terms, this book deals with death, loss, and moral desperation. If you want a classic haunted setting without that grief focus, try The Haunting of Hill House. If you want a big, long, epic horror experience with a wide cast, it is a better match. A small detail that matters for new readers is the spelling. The title uses Sematary because it reflects a child's handmade sign. That choice signals the book's mix of everyday realism and wrongness that creeps in slowly. The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty. A tense procedural-style horror novel with a grounded, investigative tone, balancing spiritual dread with practical details and a measured build toward extreme moments. Many people approach this book through its reputation. On the page, it is surprisingly controlled. There is an almost journalistic patience to how information accumulates. That makes it readable even if you usually avoid supernatural horror. This is also a useful pick if you like horror that feels like a case being examined. The fear comes from certainty breaking down, and from watching adults try to name what they are seeing. Content note: in neutral terms, there is strong language and disturbing imagery. If you want a cleaner classic supernatural tone, Dracula is less intense. If you want modern tension with a clear rule set, Bird Box is easier. If you want a haunted location story with elegant restraint, The Haunting of Hill House is the closest in craft. Even if you have seen the movie, the novel spends more time on mood and investigation. That slower build is what makes the shocks land without feeling like a stunt. It. Stephen King. A long, immersive, small-town horror epic with multiple points of view, mixing childhood nostalgia with adult unease and a constant background hum of threat. Pick it if you want a big reading project. The length is a feature. You spend enough time in the setting that it starts to feel familiar, and then that familiarity turns uncomfortable. For beginners, the safest approach is to treat it as a series of connected episodes. Read in steady sessions and let the town atmosphere do the work. The language is straightforward even when the scope is large. Content note: in neutral terms, there is violence and cruelty, and the book includes difficult scenes that many readers consider intense. If you want King with less scale and a tighter cast, start with The Shining. If you want a shorter psychological classic with a clean finish, choose The Haunting of Hill House. The title works because the threat is deliberately hard to define, which keeps the book in the realm of nightmare logic. If you are unsure about committing, sample the first chapters. You will quickly know if the voice is for you. Now let's turn these 9 books into a simple starter path. If you want classic atmosphere and folklore, start with Dracula. Then move to Frankenstein for a tighter, more reflective classic that still feels eerie. If you want modern Gothic mood with clear prose, Mexican Gothic is a great next step. If you want haunted spaces and suggestion-based fear, start with The Haunting of Hill House. Then try The Shining for a longer isolation story with more day-to-day texture. If you want the biggest version of that experience, it is the scale-up option. If you want high-tension survival reading, start with Bird Box. Then move to The Exorcist if you want a more procedural tone with stronger intensity. If you want the heaviest emotional weight in this list, Pet Sematary is the one to save for a time when you want something truly bleak. The point of these paths is control. You are choosing a style, not proving endurance. When you know your lane, you can also tell when a recommendation is mismatched. If someone loves Dracula, they might not want Bird Box right away. If someone loves Bird Box, they might find Frankenstein slow at first. Use the lane that matches your mood, and you will finish more books. A final way to use this list is to treat it like a calibration set. Read one classic, one haunted space book, and one modern fast premise. After that, you will know if your taste leans toward atmosphere, psychological unease, or high-pressure suspense. This helps you pick future horror without relying on vague labels. If you discover you love classic Gothic language, Dracula opens a huge library of older horror and dark fantasy. If you discover you prefer tight literary dread, The Haunting of Hill House is a strong signal that you may enjoy other psychological classics. If you discover you like modern page-turners, Bird Box and Mexican Gothic show two different ways to keep momentum while still feeling eerie. If you want to go deeper into Stephen King without getting lost, use The Shining as the baseline. It has the clearest balance of readability and atmosphere. From there, choose Pet Sematary when you want heavier emotion, or It when you want the longest immersion. Whatever you choose next, the best beginner rule is simple. Read what matches your current tolerance and your current life stress. Horror works best when you feel in control of the experience. That is how the genre stays fun and sustainable.